There we go. We are live. What is up? It is Rob and obviously Lucas. No Scott today, but we're trying to hold down the fort. As good as Scott does. But we are live. Guys, we will just have this little trailer and then we will be with you talking all things Saturday night main event.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, we are ready. We are live and kicking. That's a reference from the 90s. For Saturday night's main event. I'm actually really excited. Obviously, I'm trying to watch as many PLEs this year as I can. Obviously, with missing quite a lot last year. Lucas, obviously, I know you've been on board with quite a lot of them. Obviously, keeping up to date and a lot on track. From what I've seen so far, I think with it being on Netflix as well, it's been a hell of a lot easier for me to kind of catch up and play catch up. So firstly, one, how you enjoying the Netflix era, and have you enjoyed the build up of the Netflix era onto Saturday night's main event and bringing obviously that into the fold now? It's another show.
Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of up and down, isn't it, for me? Like, I think obviously the Raw on Netflix premiere was a spectacle. You know, was something which obviously to the company is maybe once in a generation potentially. You know, with obviously the move off of network television to streaming. And, you know, it was just a kind of advert for the company. But then going after that, we've had a couple of episodes of Raw on Netflix. And I think they've been kind of better, but we are kind of stuck in a limbo of people just announce themselves the Rumble matches. And they're only really being a couple of major kind of feuds and rivalries that are focused on present. But I think the build overall has been good in saying that, though I just think there are some bits like that need more work. But I think ultimately though, you spoke about the accessibility. I think that's so key. Like, I think so many people are now watching this, because of it being on Netflix. It's so easy. You know, Netflix, obviously, I know we have some international viewers that join these streams. Netflix, obviously, over here is built into a lot of televisions. A lot of streaming services. It's like the main selling point. You know, you get like a Roku stick, Chromecast, or whatever. Like, you get it because it has Netflix like built in, and it's even in like hotel rooms, isn't it? Some hotel rooms have.
It is now,
apps and stuff. So it's so easy, and there is people that are probably going to come back to the product for years, because it is, when you see the Netflix top 10 TV shows, I think at one point it was within the hello MWA, please subscribe to his channel as well. Like when obviously it's on the top 10 with stuff like Squid Game, which is obviously it's
happening. Sludge, how you doing?
Sports, hello, thanks as always. But Saturday night's main event is kind of an in-between, isn't it? Because it's like, basically, this one feels almost like pre-show to the Rumble in some ways.
That does
make
sense.
And obviously, we will have some coverage of the Rumble next week on Reb Noise. Plenty of stuff. We really enjoy the Rumble here, as does everyone, really. It is like, we'll get to that next week, I guess, but it is like the de facto wrestling event, isn't it, in a way? Like, look, everyone knows the Royal Rumble. Everyone knows, even people outside of wrestling, everyone knows the Royal Rumble, over the top rope. And but we'll get to that next week. But we are seeing 4 matches tonight, with a contract signing for the Royal Rumble take place. So it's quite action-packed. Something which I was going to touch upon is the fact that, SmackDown last night had 7 matches. There was 7.
It was full, man.
Which it has to be a record in the Triple H era.
It does. But I was gonna say it did feel like a complete SmackDown for once, if you know what I mean. Like it didn't feel like there was anything filler. You know, things like to do with something that was happening last night that happens today. There was a lot of like crossovers. So, for example, LA Knight talking about Jacob Fatu, then apologizing to Braun Strowman. Because in case he doesn't get his match, because he's gonna like slap the shakes out of Jacob Fatu. Do you know what I mean? Like little things like that. If it really connected to tonight's PLE, and I think it was so well done. I think the good thing is because it's a SmackDown, you can cross over. But not even that. Just Raw itself felt like it was a perfect segue into SmackDown. It just went into Saturday Night's main event. It just felt real complete.
I still think Raw's been a bit shaky for me. I think SmackDown seems like a more complete show. I don't know whether that is because obviously SmackDown is still in the United States anyway, and in other territories, it's still kind of going with the network television kind of schedule, isn't it? It's still 3 hours. It's still having to have adverts in the right places and stuff. Whereas obviously Raw is only obeying and answering to Netflix. But I did think that something which I felt SmackDown did quite well last night is something which Raw needs to learn from big time is just kind of having things done like quicker. And that's what's way like, Raw has spent like a lot of time some weeks with one story where you'd have, the Judgment Day will have it in a promo in the ring. And then I guess you're talking about, sorry, I know Rob's got family around. But yeah, you'll have the Judgment Day start Raw, and then they have a backstage segment, after the first match. Then they come out and have a match with a promo afterwards. And it's like we only seen the same 4 wrestlers. You know what I mean? Like over and over and over and over again. But last night I thought on SmackDown it was quite good. Like it. Cody Rhodes opened the show, and rightfully so, I guess. He's the champion. He opens the show, does his promo. Then Kevin Owens comes out, based on the promo back on him. But we're already into the first match afterwards. And I think even like, getting into the second match, which was a tag match, they went straight into that pretty much, straight off the first. And they had the backstage segment with The Miz and with Nick Aldis and Carmelo Hayes, and then obviously Damian Priest, who obviously is the newest acquisition to SmackDown. So a few moves. Obviously, we saw The Miz comically obviously try to team up with A-Town Down Under, only to because he's still trying to get away from the Wyatt Six, who are again they have been drafted to SmackDown from Raw. Only to be told that A-Town Down Under are heading to Monday Night Raw. So The Miz obviously can't get that alliance. I think is it Karrion Kross has also been moved to SmackDown, or is he just
I believe so, or that there's potential that he wants to be there. I really did like the. Guys, I really like the narrative of the way we got a definitive answer of the Wyatt Six are 100% on SmackDown.
Yes,
and then we get a definitive answer of The Miz purposely got them drafted to SmackDown. Like The Miz had some pull in that. But then also didn't know that he was going to SmackDown. So even though he drew that card to do that, he then went over himself. I really like that. Nick Aldis was very dry with the sense of humor, if you know what I mean. He was like, you need to make some new friends.
And I think also it was like kind of, The Miz got his way, and now that Nick Aldis is kind of making him not get his way with obviously sending, A-Town Down Under 2 Raw kind of purposely. We saw that move. But yeah, all this stuff was done though in very short segments that weren't overly long, didn't need to have a promo, didn't need to have a talk show, and it allowed obviously for wrestling to be the star, of the show last night, quite a lot. We did have the typical way they set up every single 6-person match ever it seems. The women coming out one by one, but even that was done. It made sense because I think all those women, kind of individually, are deserving of getting those pops and reactions, and having their moment. So I didn't think it stuck out too much. I think if they were to keep returning to that, they just keep doing that, and fair enough. But I felt that, it was done. Yeah, it was done quite well. In terms of obviously tonight, though, I think obviously we're getting to tonight. So I think obviously tonight, I believe it is airing on YouTube tonight. I believe it is.
I believe so.
It must be on YouTube. I don't know. It was YouTube last time. We'll keep you posted, guys. But we have got 4 matches to discuss. Which one do you want to start with? We've got two title matches with the men. We've got a women's world title.
All right, why don't we do the one I think the one I'm looking forward to the most? Can we start with that one? Because obviously that for me that's the most exciting. Okay, which is
oh yes,
this, yeah, man, Braun Strowman, Jacob Fatu. I feel like no, I hope they just tear each other apart. Like I just between them. I mean, if you've seen anything to do with Jacob Fatu before WWE, pre WWE, you'll know that he's a force to be reckoned with. And obviously, we've seen what Braun Strowman is capable of during his run so far, like his previous run, obviously in this run. So yeah, I think for me, this match, man, I'm so looking forward to it. It's I think it's going to be. I think if booked right, I reckon it's going to steal the show.
Yeah, this is the thing. I think I still maintain that you know, Jacob Fatu is probably one of the best signs they've done in ages. You know, in ages. And the intensity he brings, and obviously Braun, I still think Braun's been done dirty somehow. You know, as much as obviously he's still featured, he's still getting moments and stuff. I still just think this guy was Universal Champion, like, you know, 4 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, and the pop when he came back was huge. Like, he still gets reactions. You know, no matter who he's going to put on with. He did the whole thing with Omos, and like, you know, he's done so much kind of, you know, since. But it just seems.
And so even the stuff from Ricochet, that was so underrated. Like them two together, like the little and large thing was brilliant. It was one of my favorite oddball tag teams that we've had in at least 10 years, you know?
I don't know, to me, it just seems like he's been done dirty somehow. But I think we've got Braun Strowman, and we've got the fact that, you know, Braun Strowman, you know, he does well in the matches that are allowed to be chaotic. You know, he always has been. And it's an interesting one, because is this a one and done, or is it something which they kind of do again? Obviously, we have got some big platforms coming up. I believe obviously we've got the Rumble itself. We have WrestleMania coming up, Chamber, and I think there's another satellite event as well. Like around, I'm not sure after this, they'll probably announce it on this one, but there must be one probably before Mania, or just maybe if not just after. But I think. Yeah, ultimately, I think this one, the more chaotic it is, the better, surely. You know, that's
100%. And I think the fact that from what I believe, there's no stipulation, is there? It's just those two, right?
Yeah.
So I can only imagine that it starts off with, for example, a no stipulate, like a normal match, singles match, is only going to get more chaotic, as we've said. So I reckon, even if they do, for example, they go back at Rumble and they go at it again, you know, and something happens there, I would love for example, these two to have a match. Weirdly, I wouldn't be angry if this ended in a no contest, because I think as long as they book it in a way where, with Rumble coming up, I think having them to meet again at Rumble and just go at it, I think would be such a great, like, literally everyone else is in the ring, they take everyone else out that's there. And then they go at it, and then they get thrown over, and it sets them up again for the next PLE. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that this could be a match used to advertise the Rumble match itself. To be fair,
yeah.
You know, obviously with the interference that can happen, as we know, with the bloodline, and to get some more people on the card potentially. So yeah, it could be. It depends. Obviously, something which obviously. Kind of hoping Triple H addresses obviously in 2025 is, you know, can we squeeze on like another match, or can we even get the pre-show match back or something for some of these programs? Because you look at the Rumble, and obviously a match that came out of SmackDown last night, which is good to see. I don't know, on our group chat we have been mentioning about the lack of tag team title defenses. Obviously, this will be the first time the titles are going to be defended on a PLE since WrestleMania. But we are seeing about 3 falls match between DIY and the Motor City Machine Guns for the WWE Tag Team Championships at the Rumble. We also obviously seen the 2 Rumble matches, and we are seeing a ladder match between Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. Last year, the Rumble, we had 4 matches. That's what we had. We had 4 matches.
Was it only 4? It didn't.
Yeah.
Wow.
Same with the Chamber.
Right.
Chamber was 4 matches as well. We had 2 cards in a row where there were only 4 matches on the card. And so, Chamber, sorry, War Games, sorry, Survivor Series was 4 matches.
Yeah.
You had the 2 War Games matches. But yeah, it just gets the thing, can we, maybe this is something, Triple H has been kind of saying to Netflix and been saying to people, obviously, they're giving a lot of time to sponsors, to celebrity guests and people arriving at the arena. Can some of this time be redistributed to, okay, can we feature another match? Because obviously next week, if obviously what we're seeing the 2 Rumble match attractions, we're seeing a ladder match, and then we're seeing like a tag match. Like, can we not get, at the moment, there's no scheduled appearance, obviously, for the women's, either. There's now 4 singles women's belts. There's women's tag belts.
Exactly.
None of them are being represented as part of the PLE. I guess obviously you could argue a lot of these wrestlers will end up in the Rumble match before people comment. Obviously, you have to
fair enough.
But each of those people.
But what about the rest of the year? Like the Rumble, which I think is the only exception. Potentially, maybe Survivor Series if they do, let's say, a Team Raw versus Team SmackDown thing, and then they have, or like the women's world title and another one, then they bring in their respective other, a tag team from this one and that. That's a valid reason to not display them. But you're right, man. Like the men's tag team titles, Shinsuke Nakamura with his title at the moment, all of a sudden he's like, you have so many titles that you can showcase. And the only ones that are being used, I mean, Kevin Owens is showing the one that he's currently holding. And that's being shown on TV more than the women's ones. And like they've only just won them. So you're right. Granted, yes, okay, is the Rumble coming up, but the rest of the PLEs, man, as you put in the group chat, do we just not see the men's tag titles anymore? Which, at this point, I would go out on a thing and say, look, unify them, make it one set of titles, and that's it.
There's lots of teams. It just seems to be that there's a lack of time on the shows, like because they dedicate the time to other things.
Yeah.
I just look back at when I do have a chance. This is again now that obviously Raw's on Netflix and stuff. Going back to the limited catalogue that has been put on Netflix, but I still find myself, maybe skimming or watching the odd match or 2 from an old Raw, and you can guarantee within like 30 minutes or 45 minutes, like you're seeing like multiple divisions. Even though back then, like whichever area you're looking at, we had less divisions, you could argue, because obviously now the women have mid-card belts and tags and all this kind of stuff, but still, like you can guarantee you'd see. And sometimes it was at the detriment. Don't get me wrong. Like, I sit very much on the thing of thinking most of SmackDown from like 99 to about 2001 is actually just like unwatchable, like on the most part, because it's just short match after short match, just loads of stuff just happening. The how they got through things so quickly because of they were doing the ratings war, and it shows particularly in 1999 because it is like every 5 minutes something new or something big has to happen, for no apparent reason. But still, you're seeing more wrestlers, you're seeing more, even though the matches were only like a minute, some of them like 2 minutes or whatever odd, you're seeing more wrestlers. And I don't want it to go back to that, but I do want it to be like, okay, if I see a WWE show, I'm not going to be sat there going, who are the tag champions? Like
literally, I feel like that.
Because I forgot that the War Raiders were the tag team champions on Raw.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Because I assumed the Judgment Day still had them because they were being more featured, on the product. And I thought they were doing a kind of split thing with, like Finn and that lot, and that was the tease that they'd end up losing the belts. But I found out they've already lost the tag belts, and the next week they're having their rematch, which again is another problem I have with Triple H's booking, is that it just seems that his way of building up the challenger is just to basically pause the division and then kind of reboot it again. So you could look at like Shinsuke and LA Knight, and Shinsuke came back, won the belt, fair enough, but then it's like 6 weeks later he's then just having his rematch with LA Knight, and it's like, well, who else is there in the division that you're building up? I mean, you could argue that, you could argue. I mean, Damian Priest already seems like he's very much, got his eyes maybe set potentially on Cody, some after last night's kind of thing. You have to imagine the Miz will just continue doing the stuff with Wyatt Six. which again could be entertaining, him trying to recruit people, but you can't really see him how he diverts the US title at this point. Logan Paul, obviously, is now a member of Monday Night Raw, and he'd be another person you think would be in that division. Like, who else is there really to put in that? Because we don't see enough.
Yeah.
We only see like the champion or the main people. I guess Jimmy Uso, maybe a shout, I guess.
Potentially, I would say you're right though. You're very right with in terms of who we're getting here and there kind of thing. Because, I mean, let's just go back to at one point with the IC when Braun Breaker had his first run with the title. There was, I'm trying to think. So obviously, Jey Uso took it from him, but before that, we had Jey Uso, kind of in a mix at that point as well. There was Sami Zayn. And there was Chad Gable for a brief second, obviously, before the White at Six stuff happened. Ricochet was kind of floating around near Bron as well. So, like, there was a plethora of wrestlers that were kind of, it's not this person, but it'll be this person. So we had an option of, like, that's why it felt like when Sammy won it, we all felt it should have been Gable.
Yeah.
And now it's a case of, well, we've got, like, one person that's in the lineup or no one because it's a rematch. And you're thinking, but it doesn't need to be LA Knight right now. It should be someone else. And now we're having a debate on, we can't even think of who's next.
Yeah, it's
that
weird,
really shows the problem.
It's been now, I think we're going on for 7 years now since, Triple H, Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, all came out at the start of Raw, with Shane McMahon as well, actually, and said that we're listening to you. And one of the things that came from that conversation was that they were going to get rid of the automatic rematches. And, because obviously for years, the format that followed for a lot of people was that, most views would last 3 pay-per-views. If it was whatever title was for, you're going to get 3 matches out of it, basically, with the third match more than likely being some sort of gimmick match or something. And even if they didn't want to burn through them and didn't want to use 3 pay-per-view spots, you would still see you'd get the rematch from Raw the next night for some matches, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And then they'd use that as the way to set up the next angle. But it very much feels now that it's kind of got a bit boring because I swear, if I see one more tournament for a belt or for a number one contendership, I swear to God, I get that. It feels like that's the only time that you see other wrestlers though. Sometimes. Yeah. When they do those kind of matches, those kind of tournaments, and you go, all these people still work here and they still want things. But I don't know. I just wish sometimes there wasn't always a reliance upon, just having these long kind of feuds that aren't really feuds because, LA Knight, lost the title, didn't do anything for weeks, then suddenly started to care about it again. And just went, I'm having my rematch next week. And then had the rematch. And even that's ended in a DQ, but, we move.
I know, man.
If they do get a third match, do you know what I mean? Are they really going to weigh it out to Mania for that? It just seems a bit, I don't know. It just falls a bit flat to me. I get that obviously they're not going to go back to, Cena's Open Challenge when it's a new person every single week, and then obviously then you build up someone losing. But then can there not be a balance between that and what we're getting now? We're getting the fact that I can't even list anyone who I can think of that would challenge Shinsuke next.
Yeah,
because I'm not seeing enough wrestlers.
Exactly. I think the only upside at the moment, as obviously we lead into the next person we're going to discuss, obviously with Shinsuke, it's very hard to pick, as you said, who could be the next person. Obviously, that's just one mid-card title. With the IC title, I feel like that's still the same thing that we're discussing is still kind of happening to a degree. But thankfully, we may have a savior. As I put the graphic up now, I feel like this, as I said, Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman could steal the show. But man, can you imagine these two just literally going at it and as a banger after banger? I would happily see Breaker and Sheamus, just beat the living hell out of each other for the match. And again, I think this is another on any other card. This could steal the show, But on any other card, maybe depending on how it's booked, you'll be like, oh, okay, it's gonna have a good match. On this card, the way it's being built, it has that steal the show potential. What's your thoughts going into this one? Do you think Sheamus is going to be walking out as the champ?
I'm kind of hoping he does. Don't think he will though. Yeah, I don't think he will. I think he probably should, and I guess my heart's with that. But it does seem like there's two ways to look at it. There's the way where obviously, like it is just the one thing he needs to do, but I do see that Braun's push already kind of got started with the whole Jey Uso winning the belt and then had to win it back. And I think losing that first match to Sami Zayn as well was daft. So there's been some daft choices thrown at him, but I think this would be one which it's just one of those where if Sheamus, the thing with someone like Sheamus is, it's mental to think that obviously he has just signed a deal that will take him, I think, 5 years, and will take him into essentially wrestling into his 50s, which is, bonkers. But you have to imagine he's one kind of bad injury away from calling it a day, potentially for forever. And so I just think, are we going to look back at this moment and say this could have been the moment we did it, even though it wasn't maybe not the right moment. Maybe we could have waited to Mania or SummerSlam or the next kind of UK or Ireland or European pay-per-view. But it's a case of, again, touch all the wood imaginable. I don't want this to happen. But if for some reason come next month or 6 months down the line, Sheamus is unable to wrestle again, do you know what I mean? It's just going to be all we go, I wish they just did it then,
Yeah, because I mean, it's not like they haven't had enough time, man. I mean, he's been in the company, and at one point, I think, was it last year or the year prior, he got to a point when his sole purpose at that current time of his career was to become the IC title, like the champion for it.
Yeah.
And there was enough time that to pull it, and they still didn't. So, at what point do we do it? At what point? So do you either stall Braun Breaker's moment again, and then we have it with Sheamus and have Braun then become a third-time IC champion, and then have it from a great match like that, or do we do the opposite? Yeah, Braun have a really good run with the IC title, but then the same thing that you've just said, potentially Sheamus never wins the IC title, and if he, heaven forbid, but if he was to get injured, we're like, well, he's never going to do it now, So
I mean, there is a way to maybe salvage both by linking into maybe our last point. Like, if Bron was to lose, could he then get drafted to SmackDown, turn face, and become Shinsuke's next challenger?
That's a great idea.
Because they like the whole losing upwards kind of thing. Obviously, sideways, I guess, but it still keeps that momentum. If it's a bounce back as well, like if it is just, Sheamus wins the belt, has a couple of title defenses, then drops it either at Mania or even at the Chamber or something. Like, is that possible? Because I don't think anyone wants or needs this run to be like epically amazing. I think it just with this one, it's like it's the moment of him winning that belt, isn't it? That matters the most.
Yeah.
And we know we're going to get bangers out of Sheamus. It's guaranteed. Just do him and Kaiser again for the title on Raw.
Even those two and Kaiser in the match as well. Yeah. Like that would be absolutely insane. I'll tell you again, I think for me, what I like about the situation we're in now and this moment in time is we're so close to Rumble that, for example, if let's say Sheamus was to win it, we haven't got to wait long for a reason for them to have another match. One, we already know that he'll want to redeem himself. Two, if Breaker goes into the ring doing a Rumble and Sheamus is already there, we know who his target is. So we have something ready and set up to really push that, like kind of that route. And again, the same thing I said about Strowman and Jacob Fatu. If they were just to take everyone else out and then just have them two standing there like, this is our moment, and neither of them are backing down, it really builds to both of them being so dominant, and the title means everything. So again, if booked right, the IC title could be the most important thing, to being used in the Royal Rumble match itself, because of one wrestler trying to defend his honor. And the other one trying to gain it back. So that story can be told. I think that's the only good thing at the moment with anything that happens and changes hands, with the Rumble being so close. There's a way out, if you know what I mean. There's like you took it from me, I'm taking this moment from you, and then we go from there. Obviously, sets up another part of that feud. But man, I'm unsure. Honestly, I'm like you. My heart wants it to be Sheamus. but my head doesn't think they're doing that anytime soon. I think if they're going to do it, he'll probably get his Zack Ryder moment of Mania. I think if they're going to do it, they might as well wait till Mania now.
I think the one they might do for Sheamus is title versus career kind of thing, or something like that. Like, if he loses, he won't ever chance for it again. I think they will kind of stack the odds and give him that big kind of moment. With the time, I think this match got announced a few weeks ago, didn't it? Actually, when Sheamus beat Kaiser. Prime didn't add that stipulation or add any kind of story to this match at all. Because, this is the thing. Like, obviously, Sheamus and Braun are capable of bangers. We know that. And obviously, we have seen the match previously via Triple Threat. But it would be nice to see some sort of time dedicated to, this storyline and why it kind of is important. Because, I hate to say it, like, two things, sadly, are happening in WWE at the moment, which is quite odd. And they involve Gunther, who I guess we're going to move to talk to next anyway. But I do think that sadly, Gunther raised the prestige of the IC title, and it's now kind of losing it a little bit by not being featured as much and not being seen as up there as much as it was when Gunther had it. But on the flip side of that, Gunther isn't doing what he was doing for the IC belt to the World Heavyweight belt.
Yeah,
it's bonkers. Like, it's weird to think someone who elevated the IC title to such a high standard has been unable to do it with the World Heavyweight Championship. And obviously, we'll move on to talk about that match now anyway, I guess. As obviously Gunther is defending the World Heavyweight Championship, which he's held since August. SummerSlam. He will defend it against main event Jey Uso in what I believe will be the main event. Because I think they might
should be right.
The show with having the hometown pop for Shawn Michaels, but I don't know whether they'll do that first or last. So they might do this match first and then the contract signing last, to get that pop. But they do. I think
unless something happens in that contract signing that really wow, do you know what I mean? Unless it's that, I reckon it'll open with Shawn Michaels. I agree. Yeah. Like, it'll be either way, but I think Shawn opening.
And I think because it's a match, I think you should build your show around the World Heavyweight title match. I think so, and I think that potentially, because I do think they've done Gunther somewhat dirty in the booking of this reign, and again, it suffered mainly from him not having reputable challengers.
I will say,
which is on a loop.
Yeah, I will say, but just so you know, the boss is watching. He said, imagine if Sheamus wins the IC title and Jey wins the world title. I don't see it, but you never know what they want in these SNME shows. Maybe someday, Kibble, good word. We're trying, man. It's weird when it's just two of us, if you know what I mean. I know you normally do it with Scott, but he normally leads the whole direction. So it's weird having two people kind of I don't know. It's just a bit. Normally, I'm used to Scott just talking. I'm like, yeah, I'll just listen and then I'll pop in. But yeah, no, you're right. It would be.
There's four of us, but that was a lot of talking. But yeah, it's been two of us for a time. But yeah, no, Scott's point is correct. I think they're establishing the shows as being important, though. I think that's good. And it does feel a bit like I said before, this feels a bit like a Rumble pre-show, and some matches with. And what I think they're going to be careful of doing or not doing is not kind of redoing matches, repeating matches next week, essentially. So I think this is very much, we're not going to get a World Heavyweight Championship match next week at the Rumble because obviously we got it now. And we're getting the WWE Championship next time. And I think obviously last time on Saturday Night's Main Event, we didn't have, was the World Heavyweight title defended last time?
I think. No, I don't know. Someone in the comments let us know. I can't remember.
Yeah, Cody, women's in IC title.
I don't think it was because it was Owens and Cody, wasn't it?
Yeah, Owens and Cody. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think they're definitely establishing them as kind of important events, though. I think that, and that's the way forward with it. I know, obviously, news coming out of recently. But regarding tonight, that Hulk Hogan will not be making an appearance tonight. This is due to obviously his daughter giving birth to twins, and I guess it probably hasn't come as at a more kind of easy time for him to do this. Kind of with obviously the recent reactions he received on Raw on the Netflix debut. and just his overall kind of status in the company, it probably, you know, in terms of like on screen anyway, it probably is for the best. But yeah, Hulk Hogan obviously is celebrating becoming a granddad, which, you know,
That's for the first time, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so. I don't think his son Nick's had any kids. Yeah, he celebrated becoming a granddad, so that seems like it's a fair reason to go. But in terms of the World Heavyweight Championship match, we've got Gunther against Jey Uso, and for me, it's an interesting one because Gunther's reign as World Heavyweight Champion has been a bit subpar, and annoyingly, I just saw this from the minute he faced Randy Orton, or the minute it was announced that his first challenger would be Randy Orton in Berlin. Because although the Berlin show, you could argue, exists in its own like kind of bubble, its own kind of caveat of, okay, well, it's home turf, it's a different crowd, blah, blah. It still just, for me, rang or reeked of, there's no one, we haven't built anyone up. So we're just going to go back to the well of Randy Orton. You know, he's always easy to kind of get over and be that first. Because the thing is, with that first part of it, you are just the first guy, aren't you? You're the first guy of hopefully lots of guys. And obviously, certain people have slotted into these roles over the years. People like your Kevin Owenses, Sami Zayn's, AJ Styles, like people who, sadly, their ship has sailed in terms of them becoming a world champion in terms of what WWE have thought, but it's because they're always just the first guy. Dolph Ziggler was another one as well, actually. He's quite a lot.
Yeah, it was a perfect example.
Sheamus too. You know, those are people they went to the well with and said, you know, you are just the first guy, you know, of potentially lots of guys, and then the guy will come and the guy will beat that guy, and then another guy will come beat the guy and become the other guy. You know, so. But I do feel that there's a lot of momentum behind Jey Uso. He is crazy over. And I was thinking this last night when I was watching SmackDown and just remembering that literally that Jey Uso can barely move without the yeet, yeet. You've got the announcers doing it, embarrassingly. He's got the crowd members, the celebrities, other members of the roster. It's trending, you know, it's all the kind of stuff they want. And then Jimmy Uso, when he's facing Kevin Owens, I just felt the back end was ruined. Not ruined, but it was just noticeable that Jimmy is just nowhere near as over as Jey. Like,
yeah,
it's night and day to the point. I think because obviously Jimmy did the turn, that weird turn on Jey, and there hasn't really been a full-on kind of moment for them. You know, and now they're singles, but obviously people have to remember that Jey Uso was forced into singles by the circumstance. Obviously, what happened?
Yeah, it wasn't by choice. Yeah,
and the Cody's thing. Obviously, now Jimmy's doing it, but he's only doing it because of his own actions that he'd done to his brother and himself. I think as well, it did help that obviously, you know, Jimmy got injured, didn't he? Post WrestleMania, and spent some time away. Jey obviously was able to kind of, you know, rise up the ranks. But yeah, it did occur to me, Jimmy's nowhere near as over as Jey. And so then that created this dilemma of, well, my thought process was previously to this that, okay, well, they're obviously going to put the Usos back together because, you know, Jay's had his single belt now, so the Rikishi was shut up on Twitter now. You know, Jimmy's back from injury. They've kind of got back together in the keep saying chamber, but I meant War Games, sorry. War Games match. And the obvious thing now is to have them team up and then they will fight either Judgment Day or like DIY or whatever, and then win tag belts again and be part of the tag division. But now, seeing that there is just this such disparity between how they get reacted to by the crowd, I think there must be a reason to keep them apart. And the reason the fact that Jey Uso is going to become the new World Heavyweight Champion tonight. You know, because what did he do? He doesn't win that. Like, what does Gunther do? He does lots of things, right? And there's lots we can explore of Gunther. But Jey, like, what's his Mania plans? Like, because you have to imagine you want that pop on your show. You want that entrance, if nothing else. I mean, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, look, to jump off of what you were saying, to make like the Saturday Night Main Event special, I think something needs to happen where you're like, I didn't see that happening. Like to really solidify PLE being just insane. You know, like there's a moment where you're so close to the edge of your seat that like you're going to come off it. They need to do something in order to make that happen. And I might be biased as an Uso fan, right? But I believe having Jey win it, I think could be a perfect move because you're right. One, Gunther hasn't had a strong title. I was going to counter that with a question though. At what point do we agree that Gunther's IC title run was as great as it was? Was it when we knew he was getting close to the Honky Tonk Man's record, or way before then? Because it only became more important when they started saying it's going to become the longest IC title. Like he was having good matches. I'm not disputing that at all. But only when it came to a point where he could potentially break a record, everyone started caring a hell of a lot more. You know? So
yeah, I think Gunther as a whole was people were already invested in him from NXT.
Yeah, I agree.
Onto the main roster, and then he won the belt, and yeah, like he did have successful matches very early on. But I do think there was something very special about the change of the presentation of Gunther and the IC belt, which came hand in hand. And I think something that they did is obviously they went from having the IC champion very often become an afterthought of the booking. So obviously, you know, you'd get an IC champion who would just be in random tag team matches and take pinfalls.
Yeah.
You know, which sadly with the women, we just saw Chelsea Green last night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
2 weeks, whatever, into their title reign. But anyway, whereas Gunther was always about like the big match feel to it. And I think as Gunther carried himself as almost like a de facto world champion in the era, and I do say it's weird saying this, and it was an era because sadly, I guess, you know, the Bloodline story has kind of evolved forward anyway. But in terms of the main belt, we were dealing with the fact that the main world championship in the WWE at the time, you know, was being held by a part-time wrestler for a long time during Gunther's run. We didn't have the World Heavyweight Championship at that point either. I know there was talk about them splitting the 2 belts that Roman had, but that didn't obviously come to fruition. And it's a situation we've got now where we're still calling this the undisputed belt, but we've got another belt.
Yeah.
World Championship plus the women's stuff and NXT. But anyway, we move. But yeah, no, I do think that for me, Gunther was always billed as important. Yes, it ramped up like when he got close to the reign, to the run, like when he got past the year and all that kind of stuff. But I think he was already kind of there because the presentation of him with that belt was different to definitely the people that preceded him, like Ricochet and other people. You know, it was made very clear that Gunther would not be booked in those situations. He was booked very, very strongly, to the point where, you know, we are, you know, X amount of years into his WWE career, and I think he's only not had a championship for about a month. Like,
yeah, I think he's been a champion longer in his career than he hasn't been a champion.
Yeah.
Like it's insane.
Yeah. But I do think something's got to change, because I think where we're at now is sadly something just isn't connecting with him and the audience and this title reign. And I think WWE may wish they may have wished to park that. They may have something in the future they've got planned big for Gunther for that belt, and that's why he's got the belt. But it is something they've got to address. There are just infinitely more over acts on their shows that aren't getting a look in because Gunther has this title. Yeah. And so, but I don't know. Yeah, I think a big moment they could do. You're saying about these jaw-dropping, edge of seat moments. I think this is it. It's you put the world championship on Jey Uso. You take a punt on the former tag team wrestler. You know, come main event Jey Uso, which again to me, this match has got to be main event because I don't understand this obsession with that nickname and then him never main eventing anything.
Main eventing, it fits your object. I'll tell you what. I do want to say, Steve Austin I know it's going way back. Stone Cold Steve Austin was a tag team wrestler. He won the IC title. He moved himself up, right?
Yeah.
And became a
Michaels,
hell of a superstar.
Bret Hart.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, exactly. So I'm not saying Jey Uso is anywhere near the conversation of he's one of those legends, but it worked for those, and they took a punt on him in a time when they had a hell of a lot of wrestlers. So why can't Jey Uso be that next guy? You know, I think as well, weirdly, Gunther isn't getting the same. Like at this point, he's not even getting a reaction. He's getting that weird Karrion Kross treatment. And I hate saying that because I love Karrion Kross. Like the work he's doing at the moment is some of my favorite stuff. Like his promo stuff is, I don't know. There's something about him, the way he cuts a promo, that reminds me of how Bray was cutting promos backstage and talking, and he's getting that real great essence. But do you remember when he first came out and he was in that weird leather or whatever they put him in, and he had like, oh my goodness, and you could hear crickets in the crowd. And Gunther's kind of getting that. Like, there's no big pop for him. There's no. He does his chop, and it's getting to a point where the fans care, but they don't care about him. They care about a moment or the chop. And I think if we've ever learned anything, when you strike while the iron's hot, sometimes in wrestling, that's when you get that huge moment. And honestly, I think tonight we'll do two things. If Jey Uso does win a title, solidifies that they're listening and they're striking while the iron's hot. The second thing, it really makes Saturday night's main event a moment where you go, oh, I need to watch next time, because if they've done this with Jey and someone else is hot, what are they going to do? You know? And I think they need to do that and make this pre-PLE or whatever they're classing it as is something special. Because I think if it happens now and it doesn't happen again for another 6 months, you'll be like, okay, it's going to happen again. Then when it happens again, everyone's going to blow their minds because it's happened again. You know? So I think Jey, if anyone's going to win a title tonight, I think it's Jey. I think it's Jey's. It's Jey's to take. But
I don't foresee any other title changes. I think this the one.
And it doesn't hurt. Sorry, it doesn't hurt Mania.
I'd love Sheamus to do it, but I don't think this is the right time to do it. And I do just think that as much as maybe this isn't the right time for Jey to win it, in terms of like they could build up a bit more, I still think maybe that's when is the right time now, because it's not seen, it's not predictable. You know, it's obvious. You know, because the thing is, we are in the season now where there was obviously everyone on these channels, you know, like ours, will start going, oh, they're gonna say this for Mania and that for Mania, but it's like, well, Mania it hasn't got infinite spots, you know, and as we know now with WWE, they don't end stuff at Mania either. Always stuff goes past it, and obviously we've got
starts.
Yeah, and they've got international deals now, which obviously may mean that matches need to go elsewhere. So you may see a match that was built for Mania might then go to Backlash next month, or go on to, you know, Saudi or to SummerSlam, wherever it's going to be afterwards. So it's not always a guarantee that all these little loose ends are going to tie up and lead to WrestleMania. Because especially with the TV and satellite, main event and stuff all around it, that's not always the kind of get out of jail card for them to kind of book badly. You know, that's the key thing here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think previously, in previous generations, it was very much, okay, well, they build this up to Mania and that'll be the big payoff. And it's like, okay, we can see that. But because now that's not guaranteed, we've got to be a bit more strategic. And I think what we're looking at is the fact that at the moment, the iron is hot. And I think this is where, you know, under the new regime, they need to show, I think, to the fans that respect of, okay, you know, the last regime, you know, he was unhappy with because, you know, they didn't listen to the fans, and, you know, people felt that everyone was an armchair booker when Vince was, you know, the booker, and they didn't listen to the fans, and then, you know, the reaction was like, this generation, this regime, they're going to listen to the fans. But I don't know what there is next for Gunther as a thing. Like, and I think that's
Rumble.
on the company. But he's not going to win the Rumble though. Like, well, we'll get to that next week, I guess. But
yeah.
it's it would be. He just seemed like a very much an outsider. You know, being deadly honest, based on who has obviously declared themselves to the Rumble so far. But I don't know if he retains like what he would go on to do. You know, because obviously that tease they did a few months ago, the Goldberg match, was that a Saudi show, wasn't it? I believe
that doesn't need a title, in my opinion.
But I mean, that for me still is like probably the most interesting thing they could do with him. You know, like at the moment, I mean, I think with Gunther as well, it's the fact that obviously he's not a very entertaining superstar on a brand that and on a company that likes the entertaining superstars in a nice special way.
I think if he was on SmackDown, this would be a different conversation.
Which the thing isn't, you know, because you know the Netflix ads all, you know, they do have Cody all over the place, and Gunther nowhere to be seen. You know, Jey Uso also heavily featured on the adverts for tonight's show, even, you know, tonight's main event, which by the way does start in 50 minutes time, by the way, guys. So we are going to try and stay with, probably another 20 minutes or so. Obviously, this is a shorter evening of wrestling for us. 4 matches a segment, 2 hours all in, as it's a TV special over in America. But we do all the major pay-per-views for the WWE. I know Rob and Scott sometimes get on to talk about some breaking news and stuff from obviously AEW and other organizations. Obviously, we've got a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about, but we are going to be saving some points for next week, as we will have a build-up show for the Rumble.
It feels weird doing like a conversation like this when we're not making a prediction for Rumble, if you know what I mean. Like there's something filling, so it feels really weird. As like we want to discuss things to do with the Rumble, where this leads. But
it's the thing. I think a lot of it, we don't want to kind of end up saying stuff now that within a couple of hours are going to date it so much, because Jey could have been the world champion tonight, and that changed the Rumble complexion massively. As could, you know, Sheamus winning the IC belt, or the next match we have to talk about in a second, if Nia Jax wins the women's belt off Rhea Ripley. There's so many things that it would just affect those predictions so much. And obviously we have to talk about, there's the TNA acquisition recently, the NXT call-ups, there's the surprises, there's so much to unpack. It's generally the most fun event of the entire year that they do, like bar none. I think that, you know, I don't want to, this is not obviously not even a jab at AEW, but I just don't see how any promotion can come up with an event as hyped, as fun, as engaging, as, you know, like I said, people will watch the event that have not watched it since like last WrestleMania or last Rumble. Like, it's just one of those events that everyone just knows about, don't they? Everyone knows the Royal Rumble. You know, everyone knows that's the match, you know, that sets up WrestleMania, and it's such a big match. And it's such a fun match. Do you know what I mean? Like, even when they're bad, they're fun. they're you know, there's something about the match. End of the day, people still talk about the 2014, 2015 Royal Rumbles. And the reason why, because they're Royal Rumble matches. They're Rumble matches. If it was just a world title match on SmackDown, or a world title match from insert random pay-per-view this, you know, from that year, most likely people would have forgotten about them. But because they're the Royal Rumble, you know, like a tradition, part of our childhood, part of our fandom growing up and stuff. Like, it's so important. But obviously, that's obviously next week. But we do deal, obviously, a lot of those events. We've obviously got you know, a year ahead of, obviously, including international pay-per-views as well to come. I think Backlash is it Mexico, Backlash? Yeah, and
I believe so.
And and then obviously,
because I think they announced that just after Penta debut, didn't they? They done a big thing for that,
Penta, hopefully someone we will see enter the Rumble match. You know, another Marsh friend of yours. But there's lots to come. But I guess, so I guess what you kind of saying, are we hoping for Jey, or are we thinking Jey? I don't know. Is that all we?
I think from a heart point of view, it's Jey, right? I think weirdly though, from a booking logical point of view to rescue a situation that they're in, I think it needs to be Jey, because one, you're right, absolutely right. With Cody's the poster boy for everything at the moment, and I'm not disputing it. He isn't. Is when we've met him when I was at Sheffield, and I done that a couple of years back. You know, he stayed behind. He took photos. He had time with everyone. You know, he is the quarterback. But there's something about Jey right now that I don't. how do I put it? I think if he ever went back to just becoming another tag team guy, I think it's a huge loss as a solo competitor. Not saying that he geneted Jimmy, because that's not the case. Well, kind of kicked him, but that's not the case, you know. But Jay's just become this bigger. He's got an aura that I think only certain, like The Rock, as I said, The Rock, Steve Austin. I would say, I wouldn't even say personally, I don't think Brett had not much of that aura. You know, getting Brett's glasses was something special, but the whole aspect of Brett was his in-ring work, you know. But Shawn Michaels, for example, Triple H had an aura, Austin, Rock, Cena. Jay's kind of got that crowd reaction, you know, like all he's got to do is put his hands up, move them down, and the crowd yeets. You know, it's becoming a thing, and you got to look at it from I guess a networking kind of position from Netflix. If you've got a guy that the crowd are cricketing at, and you've got a guy walking through the crowd and going bananas, who do you want to have your title? You know, like, give it to him, because he's going to make people want to, you know, join in and yeet. So I actually think from both aspects, I think Jay should win for that reason.
I agree. I can't really add too much more to it. That's not already been said. I do think though that what will happen is Gunther will retain. I just but you know, in saying that, I think it's the right thing to do. It's what I want them to do, but I still think that Gunther will retain. The only thing I'm kind of hoping with the Gunther retention is that we kind of get a clear-ish direction of kind of what is next. Is there anything else that we're missing? Like, you know what I mean? Can someone come out after the match? You know, do they just, I don't know, do they just let Goldberg do his, you know, Goldbergness and be like, well, okay, Goldberg's next. Like, deal with it. Like, you know, just we need something, I think, you know, because again, I guess it's like, I guess in a way from their side, it kind of makes it opens up the title picture to everyone at the Rumble. So it's a case of anyone at the Rumble could then challenge Gunther, I guess. But I still think we need some sort of indication of what that's going to be, though. But
yeah, sorry, I sneezed. No, I agree. But again, I think sometimes a marquee match doesn't need a title. You know, let's say further down the line, we don't know what's happening with the Ula Falla with Rock and Roman. Obviously, Roman now has it. He was crowned it again by The Rock, obviously being a tribal chief or a high chief even, which I loved on the very first episode of the debut on Netflix. But then if they were to have a match, let's say at Mania this year, that doesn't need a title. There's a marquee match. It's to do with something else. Not every match that's of importance needs to have a title. You know, and if you're going to do a big marquee match and you're going to have Gunther versus Goldberg, again, I can see that happening at Mania, but the title doesn't need to be on the line there. That's a match in itself, which is big enough that the title doesn't need to be involved. So I think if you go in a direction for something like that, because let's put it this way, anyone from now, if we hear Gunther retains tonight and the plan is he retains at Rumble and the plan is him versus Goldberg at WrestleMania, is your reaction going to be Goldberg versus Gunther at WrestleMania for the title? Yes. No one cares. Like, no one, because we don't want Goldberg to have that title.
Because there's no one else built up. I think if there was other people, I think previously, if we take last year's example for a thing, obviously last year they had Cody win the Rumble and then stupidly decided to give his title shot to The Rock. That annoyed people because there was another contender. But I think with this, I think what would differ is the fact that there's no one else really built for Gunther, like that they've made intentions of. So I think if it is that they didn't do that because the contender is Goldberg, I think there'd be some backlash, but I don't think there'd be people going, "Oh, but it's this person's title shot. It's this person." Do you know what I mean? Like, pick up all his strands of anyone that there is, and they haven't built up anyone else to do so,
other than Jey.
But then if this match ends decisively, and then let's be real, they're probably then going to do a rematch in a couple of weeks, and if Jey loses that as well, and then he faces Goldberg. You know, but yeah, I kind of agree. It didn't need to be for the belt. And again, this was partly the problem with Goldberg's booking, obviously, kind of the last time round towards the end when he kept coming back and facing for the world title. But I do just still think if that is like the only plan they have, which is silly, but still I can see it be, if it was the only plan they have, I don't see why. I don't really see it being a problem. I think as long as Gunther was to win that match, obviously, and then, I guess
But that's
Gunther would lose to the next person. But I do think Gunther is lacking that win of credibility, which, while Goldberg's aura somewhat has been lost because of obviously losing a few matches, I still think there's still a bigger aura for someone like Goldberg than there is for a lot of other people that they could throw at Gunther. Because people like Rollins, they lose matches all the time. As good the matches will be, it's like, well, Rollins loses to everyone, so it's like, well, how's it special?
I understand.
So I think, but yeah, I think it's hard because obviously, like, a lot of what we say now could literally be answered within a couple of hours on the show, or or at the Royal Rumble, with obviously who wins that match. Because obviously that person could end up choosing to face Gunther or Jey Uso if he's champion at that point. Because something that could happen, I guess, is Jey does win. Does Jimmy win the Rumble, or Roman win the Rumble? Or another Bloodline member win the Rumble and they choose to face Jey. There's lots of avenues here, which does actually make this match quite exciting for multiple reasons. I think it'll be a good match as well, actually. Jey's very good with these kind of underdog situations, as we've seen.
I will say we do have a comment that kind of follows in from what we're saying, actually. Pedro says, I wish Bron Breakker should drop the IC title and go for the World Championship at WrestleMania against Gunther.
Oh, wow.
So, again, I wouldn't mind that, but where do we get that? If that's the case, then what does? Again, I don't disagree with that. I think that's a great idea. But I was literally about to say, if Gunther was to drop the title, let's say to Jey, and didn't go into Rumble, went into Rumble, let's say for example, and lost it, there's two options. He goes back for the IC title because he knows that that's his. Other than that, we get the Goldberg thing. There is a few kind of directions that Gunther could take. I know I didn't think about Breakker being the guy to drop the IC title and go for the World Heavyweight Championship. I think that would be interesting.
They've missed so many times, haven't they? People losing upwards. Obviously, we spoke previously earlier about people losing sidewards if he was to obviously go and fight Shinsuke. It's very possible. Like someone like Bron, his ceiling is unlimited in terms of what he could be doing in the business.
He needs to be marketed more, though. I think with Bron, he's a very good heel, right? But he's too good of a babyface.
Yes.
And I think that's his problem. Like, make a definitive decision as of right now for at least a year or two. Make him something and allow him to really establish that. Because when he was in NXT, I would. He's also,
I think they got rid of one of the best things he had going for him. I know, obviously, they wanted to be a singles guy when he first started, but I think the Wolf Dogs tag team on NXT was
so good.
I think
so good, man.
They could have carried on to the main roster and then had the inevitable split and feud.
I would have. Sorry, I would just to go on what you were saying. I would have had that happen and just literally have Corbin be like his guy, like his manager guy, like just have one person do that. Both rumours over as Rover. Like, they were fantastic as a tag team. He won stuff in NXT that was good. Corbin was really good there. He was getting loved again and adored by fans. Why you should have just kept them paired together, had them come up and built it out.
Because all they went and done is then put Baron Corbin in another tag team with Apollo. Yeah. And then they released Baron Corbin, and obviously, he has come out and said that Randy Orton was someone who did, try to fight for his job, basically.
It was a very good interview as well with CBB. I'd say a completely different side.
He's coming across very well, Baron Corbin. He's coming across very well. I think, obviously, previously, and obviously he knows it, obviously more than we do, but, previously his attitude, his comments had got him in trouble with WWE. Most notably, the reason initially why he lost the Money in the Bank kind of briefcase, cash stuff so quickly, was because of some of his social media comments, because there's been there was at the time with the old regime with Vince, there was that kind of line of like, you don't insult the military, and something that Baron Corbin got involved with was insulting the military, and it was seen as like just really kind of a really bad kind of faux pas, and it, you know, allegedly cost him that massive opportunity to potentially be a world champion. And, you know, I guess it's something which he'd had to live and learn with, along with other people that had made similar mistakes. I mean, never forget, you know, current TNA wrestler Steve Macklin, when he was obviously part of the Forgotten Sons stable in the company. And obviously the message that he was sharing on social media ended up getting not just him, but the whole bloody act dropped. You know, and then obviously eventually I think they have now all finally been released, you know, one by
Ironically, I actually forgot about him. That, you know.
Well, living up to their namesake. But yeah, no, I think that Bron isn't a bad shout though, you know, to do that. And there's numerous, you know, I was reading some rumours earlier and some bits and pieces, and obviously this time of year, I have to say, guys, and we say it more at the Rumble again, but you have to really like take everything with a pinch of salt and kind of know that there's lots of kind of just wrong information out there, being deadly honest. But you know, there's I think there's just so many different plans kind of going around the mill when it comes to Mania, because you know, Gunther versus Braun has been mentioned, as has Gunther against Cena, as has Gunther against Cody even. So you know, there's several options. You know, it seems that are on the cards, but it's still like, how do we get those options? But just because we are just pushing for time, the show is, you know, going to begin in about 35 minutes, so we are going to get out of it very soon, guys. We must just move to talk about the women, the solo women's match on the card, which is for the which I don't like the way the women's belts are named. It's really annoying. Whatever one that one is, that really
the world heavyweight, women's world heavyweight.
Women. Yeah, and she'll be fighting Nia Jax, who obviously previously was the other women's champion.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is kind of a rehash or reignition of their feud. You know, they've had previously. It is kind of Rhea's first kind of title defense. We've kind of been there, done that with this feud. I say this feud, it does feel like it's not going to be the feud. Nia is just, as we were discussing before, she is, the way we discussed before, the first guy. She is just the first girl. And I think it's one of those where it makes sense for it to be her, because, you know, she's coming off the back of a very successful title run. And if it is just this loss, I think she can deal with it. And then she have a moment in the Rumble next week anyway, most likely. We're eliminating a few people.
Yeah.
And then she can go and do whatever afterwards. But I do think it does seem like a very straightforward Rhea Ripley kind of win for me. Most likely with like some sort of avalanche, riptide or something. I think they want those big moments on big shows, don't they?
Yeah.
Some sort of avalanche. Oh, something I forgot to say actually.
I go for it.
For the Braun and Jacob Fatu match, is I think this is where we're going to get our first announced table breakage of the year, because I don't know what they've been saying about the table being reinforced, and you know, they keep saying it, and obviously they've had people be thrown over it and their heads bounce off it and stuff, which again, probably the whole episode, don't we, on pet peeves in wrestling. But yeah, just so many matches now just seem to be obsessed with just banging the heads off the announce table. When did that become, you know, it's not an obsession. It's like every 15 minutes that spot has to happen on a WWE show, or it's not a WWE show, it feels like. But anyway, they tease it a lot, and they tease like, you know, they tease it a lot basically. They keep mentioning it, and it's just like when they kept mentioning in the original Chamber days, when they kept mentioning the unbreakable, the impenetrable plexiglass, and then lo and behold, Goldberg goes and spears Chris Jericho.
For it. Sorry, just to cap off what you've just said. If they were, let's say for example, there was a moment where they were both. If I'm assuming there's going to have a Spanish announce table as well, like next to that kind of setup. If that is the case, and they've got both, there is two tables. I wouldn't be opposed, or wouldn't be against the idea of them running off of one table, a move happening from one table going through the other one, for example. But in that happening, because the tables are so strong, both guys are just wiped out, and there's a counter. See, I wouldn't be against that, because I'd be like, okay, like they've talked about it being the table being so reinforced, so much of them have gone through it. Like just dead wood body weight, that neither of them could get up. You know,
Well, the thing is,
or they get
even,
up and then try to get in at 10 and then they ref. So there's a moment, you know.
well, the thing is, even in the Balor and Priest match a few weeks back, they only had the table spot be, you know, kind of the sound and tech. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to find the stream. Let's Hogan getting booed. Sorry, guys.
We're live. No, it's right. Don't worry.
There we go. Sorry, the TV wouldn't mute. But, you know, I think, it's interesting. But back to Rhea and Nia. So that's a little point. But we see, obviously, we are hoping that they do some sort of big spot. But Rhea and Nia, I think it's quite straightforward. I think they might, again, because it's only been only one women's match on the card, they may use it again as a reason to showcase the women's Rumble match, obviously. And so there may be some interference or something happening after the match involving other women, because, again, that's good. Because other women do exist. And there's a lot, you know, and I do think we may see maybe even a few more women announce themselves for the Royal Rumble match. I think that's kind of the direction it's going in. I don't foresee anything other than a Rhea Ripley pinfall victory happening. I don't see why anything should happen that I can think of.
No, I agree. I do agree. I think. Well,
I'm not overlooking anyone, am I? I'm you know, in terms of this, there's no one really that would make sense.
No,
not be a pinfall win.
And there's nothing to catch in. There's no briefcase to catch in. So there's no. Oh, this could happen because we've already had that moment. I think the only thing that I am slightly confused with, to be honest, is Liv Morgan lost the title, right, to Ripley. So obviously that's happening. Obviously Liv's kind of still floating around Rhea Ripley. Great. Like there's still something there. Does it need to happen? No. But they're trying to culminate it and have this big finish, right? But Tiffany Stratton was the reason. Do you know what I mean? Like that she cashed in. So why is Nia not going towards Stratton? Like that really confused me. It just feels like they've been put together for the sake of being put together for this. Like there was no need for Nia should be attacking Stratton, surely.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit convoluted. Yeah, I guess they don't want to do, for whatever reason, they don't want to do a Stratton and Nia Jax match for whatever reason. And this happens quite often when they just maybe they want to park it, because that may be something which someone Cornette said previously, is sometimes it's the fact that feud is going to be the post Mania feud, you know, or the post SummerSlam feud, or the post whatever the pay-per-view you're building up to now. This is going to be the post it, so they may return to this at a later date. So they're going to ignore it for now intentionally, so that it will seem fresh when it's done later on. It could also be because if they don't think the match is going to do any business, they don't think the match can do any business, or they don't see the point of doing the match to make someone look weak and someone look strong. So it might be where, I guess with Nia, you have the fact that obviously she's the biggest woman in terms of she's, you know, in terms of it's very hard.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
You know, and I think it's a case of, can she really suffer the loss back to back to Tiffany Stratton?
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to do that. And obviously you're not going to then have Tiffany lose to Nia straight away. So it may be a case of avoiding that match. But the thing is, I can't be too angry though, because although the Braun and Fatu one kind of got there through other means, it was still just like there was one segment that the match got confirmed and that was it. You know?
Yeah.
And this was the same thing. Nia attacks Rhea on Raw, and then it's just I
felt like, why is she attacking her? Like, do you know what I mean? I understand that you need to make a statement and stuff, but it was so left field, because everything else was happening. You think if Nia's going to have problems with anyone right now, it's not going to be the champion on that show. It would have been Tiffany Stratton, because she took her moment from her, you know, and she cashed in. Like,
of note, Nia actually has declared herself for the Rumble match twice. She announced herself for the Rumble a few weeks ago, and then she announced it again on SmackDown as if it was brand new information. But I guess when she announced it previously, she was the then women's champion.
yeah.
But now she's announcing it as the former one. But still, I found that quite comical. Someone announcing themselves twice. Like, yeah, I'm still in it. Yeah, we understand.
Yeah, yeah, still going.
Yeah, we understand. And Liv Morgan announced herself for the Rumble as well, which I think that if nothing else, just kind of closed the fact that she knows that she's not going to get a title shot next, like before that. So she's then entering the Rumble match, which if they then want to go back to Rhea and Liv, I guess there's the out of, okay, either Liv could win the Rumble, number one, or Liv could win the Chamber, number two, or Liv could just get the match by other means, number three, post the Rumble match happening. So it can get them back to that if they want it as a pre-Mania feud. But again, I keep going back. It's important. I just think sometimes they park things on purpose. So I don't think we always need to look at it that way. And but lots to discuss with the Women's Rumble, but that's for next week. But in terms of this match, I don't foresee anything other than it being an advert for the Rumble match, which is not a problem. That's what we're here. That's what basically everyone's here for, to be real. I think they might even be counting and banking on the fact that some fans might just tune in tonight because the Rumble's meant to be today, by the way. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
The Rumble's meant to be the last weekend of January. It's this weekend. Obviously, it's next weekend and it's February 1st, which is driving everyone crazy because the Rumble is a January event. And I'm hoping next year, I know it's in Saudi, but hopefully next year it returns to January because at least that can be just it being normal again. But it's a good way.
It's strange, isn't it?
It's a good way to kick off February. And obviously, we're getting a pay-per-view tonight. Well, a show tonight of some kind, I guess.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm gonna have to, we'll touch upon before we go. Obviously, we have to try and find the streaming stuff. Touch upon maybe some final kind of bits and pieces. Obviously, last time,
to talk about too.
This as well. Sorry, we get the contract signing. With Shawn Michaels doing moderating. I kind of get a feeling I don't know what new there is to say in this feud. They'd have to say. I get that they need to make an appearance per se, but I don't know. There's an amendment to the contract that they're going on about, and obviously,
I do have a question for you. In terms of this, obviously, as a wrestling fan, without taking logical sides of looking at it from a normal point of view, do you agree with Owens or do you agree with Cody? Because in my opinion, I feel like Owens is more right than Cody. Owens is making sense.
Yeah, Owens is doing a very good, convincing job as a villain, and he's fantastic at what he does. But the issue is that, as we know in WWE, the rules are the referee decision is final, and that was what was done on the night. And obviously, so Kevin Owens is, even though he could be right, he's just not, because that's just how WWE see things. Like how they book things. But I think it's a very interesting way to do the match. It also got on that winged belt on show, for multiple weeks, so they're getting use out of it, not just having it out once. And obviously, it will be in the replica stores very quickly, I'm assuming, and on the toys and action figures and stuff. So they're doing a very good job advertising.
Hopefully, with Owens' character as well. So it really solidifies that.
And it's a good way to get involved. I'm just hoping this segment's not overly long. I just think they've said everything they need to say. They've fought a few times already. I don't know what this amendment's going to be per se.
Do you have an inkling or an idea of what it could be or what you think it may be?
I don't know. I don't know what it could be. I know that
loser leaves, changes show or something.
It's both belts hanging up.
I hope so.
I'm sorry?
I just say I do hope that obviously, because we heard on SmackDown that Cody from, I believe it's from tonight, Cody for the next week won't have that title.
Yeah.
Right. So a part of me is thinking I would love it if Owens says, "Well, this title needs to be hung up too." So both titles are above. And then if Owens, is that what they're doing?
Both men have got to surrender their belts.
Right.
To Shawn Michaels tonight. And I find it funny because I was like, what? So they got to like not have their belts for a whole week, and they're gonna be hung up in Indianapolis for like a week non-stop. Like, but yeah, no, both men have to do that, and then there was the amendment that they were doing the whole I'll sign it when he signs it kind of thing. I don't imagine it being anything too major personally. I think if anything, actually, I think the amendment might be, particularly for Owens, that like what the referee sees is final or something like that. Like, so if there is a segment, if they do a spot where there's no referee or whatever, or Owens pays off a referee or something, and then Owens gets the belt as part of the match, or only pulls one belt down and declares himself the champion. I think it'd be something like that. It'd be something basically to work against Owens and for the finish to basically be the person must retrieve both belts in front of a legally employed WWE asserted official that's not been paid off by anyone, and it must happen as part of the pay-per-view. You know what I mean? Like one of those. But I don't know what else you redo in that match. I mean, are they going to maybe make the belts raised higher or something? Or do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? It's weird. There's nothing. I don't know what else they can redo.
Yeah. So I'm at a loss as well because I can't think of something that.
Have they got a new ladder design? It's a bit
I don't know. But I think because it's a stipulation already there, it feels like there's an amendment. There's a stipulation on top now on the top of a stipulation. If it was just a standard match, and then the amendment was it's going to be a ladder match, I was like, all right, that makes sense. Like there's a drastic change.
Yeah.
But with it being already in a ladder match, I can't think of how any stipulation because there's no pinfall, there's no submission, there's no count out, anything goes. So physically, what can be amended? Unless it's like Cody has to use a ladder that's a foot smaller. Like, do you know what I mean? Unless it's something stupid like that, I can't think of.
No, but I think it's definitely good because obviously Aldis has announced it, and Aldis is doing the contract. It's definitely got to be something that would favour Cody and disadvantage Owens. Like, surely, and it's got to be really something linking to referees / decision making because that's literally what the whole feud's been about.
Yeah.
And yeah, we should say. I'm assuming obviously Shawn Michaels moderator. That makes sense. NXT has done very weird moderators over the past few months. They brand brought Eric Bischoff in for one. Obviously did the whole ECW stuff and but I think it makes sense for Shawn Michaels to kind of be the one to do this. It gets him on. I just hope it's not an overly long talking segment, and maybe I guess with the whole theming, and I just mentioned it because it's what I was going to get onto anyway. The whole theming of the event, obviously the old school. Maybe there's some sort of old school touch to it. Maybe do we even see the return of the barbershop, the barbershop set, or does Bruce Pritchard don the red face paint and we see a Brother Love show take place? I don't know. There's always there's a lot of fun ways and fun things they could do with this, but I don't know. I'm stumped with how they can make this different.
Yeah, I was going to say even going off of what you said about like the referee's decision is final, which again makes sense and it's valid, obviously, because it doesn't one side either of them, but it's going to go against Kevin Owens because he can't dispute it. But physically, the ref can't do anything other than watch the match happen because they're pulling down titles. So I literally for the life of me can't think of anything that would need the amendment of any kind. Do you know what I mean? That could be put in there. So I'm quite intrigued to see what it is.
This is where they got because it's probably going to be something so simple that no one's really going to care about or it won't affect the match. But end of the day, it's got us all talking about it, and this is where we'll be watching tonight. While we're watching tonight, and obviously we do anticipate this to either open or close the show. Most likely open the show, so they get Shawn Michaels' hometown kind of pop music first, and it fits into and follows the kind of old school theme they're going for anyway, doesn't it? You could argue. So we shall see. Obviously, the pay-per-view about starting in 15 minutes. So I guess maybe kind of our final thoughts. I guess. Quite thoughts spoken about all 4 matches. And obviously, just to remind people, we are going to be coming back with stream next week for the Raw Rumble, where we're covering, at the moment, I think we've got 2 Rumble matches for the men, one for the men, one for the women, and we've got a WWE Championship match, which is a ladder match between Cody, Rhodes, and Kevin Owens. We've got a 2 out of 3 falls match for the WWE Tag Team Championships, DIY, fighting the
I'm looking forward to that one, to be honest.
And hope maybe a couple more might squeeze their way on, maybe even via the pre-show with the man of 3 H's is nice to us. And yeah, we're here for all the upcoming PLEs. Please do like, share, and subscribe to hear more from myself, Rob, and Scott. Dan obviously does some of the TikTok stuff as well. You can follow us on there. We do some of our kind of shorter form content. As you know, this is approaching an hour and a half. Not quite the brutalist.
Nope.
But we're approaching an hour and a half. But yeah, what are your kind of final thoughts would you say about tonight's pay-per-view?
Yeah, just to bounce off of what you said, not only do we do everything that Lucas has already said, we also get the opportunity at times to have some beautiful, beautiful interviews. Obviously, there's one with LA Knight there, Santos Escobar, Pretty Deadly, who I'm assuming Lucas has at least had a run-in with one of those guys.
I've met both, and yeah.
There you go. You know, obviously in a ring. We also have other discussions. For example, when we've spoken about WrestleMania and how night should run, we also do like pay-per-view watch-alongs. Myself and Scott have sat down. We've had that, and then from that, we've had another discussion. From one of them, kind of built onto talking about the best faction ever of the Shield and how short their run was as a team, but how dominant it was. So we don't just do a live show and then that's it. Obviously, we do stuff as on demand with that kind of stuff. You can join a watch along. Hopefully, at some point this year, we're going to do another one because everyone's now, as you said right at the beginning, over an hour and a half ago, almost everyone has access to Netflix. So we hope that we can do another kind of watch along. Final thoughts though, for a short amount of matches on the card, I feel like I am really going to enjoy this. I think, and more we've spoken about it, kind of, I'm more excited. If things go the way we've kind of discussed, I think I'll be even happier, especially again with the Jey Uso thing, because I feel like that could be a right move.
Yeah,
as fans and business wise, you know. But I'm still saying this match right here is going to be match of the night.
That'll be exciting. They give it time.
Especially with you saying about the been saying about the table being like I'm like unbreakable and you can't do it. It won't be destroyed. It's been reinforced. So those guys plowing through it, I think, will be such a great moment. And again, it'll be a moment like that where we're going to talk about it because it happened on Saturday Night Main Event and it hasn't happened yet on like normal like tapings. So that'll be a moment that isn't forgotten. I hope it's like a high impact kind of thing. So like, I don't know. So, I mean, a running power slam or both of them, they just push they fly off one thing straight through a table, you know? But yeah, like, I'm excited for it. I just think it's going to be a really good show. Yeah. The one thing that I'm really on tenterhooks about is this, for the amendment thing. For the life of me, the only thing I can't think of is what it will be. So they've really got me hooked on what is it.
Yeah. So, no, I get you. No, I think we could be in for a good treat tonight. I hope that we are, because you know, this is what we're here for, isn't it? I guess, isn't it? You know, we're times it's Mania season, so you know, and we demand to be not demand, but we want to be entertained and want to be able to enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, I guess if nothing else to be said, like, you know, I've been Lucas, joined by Rob, of course. We'll be back next week for some Royal Rumble content.
We will. See you soon, guys.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.